Back again, MJ from popartmurals.com here, and we're about to do a funky abstract / pop art piece. Gather up your supplies and let's play with paint. So today we're going to try making marks in our paint with a bunch of different things. I've got some pigment powder, some coffee filters, my favorite thing in the world, bubble wrap. This is so much fun on paintings. An old chippy brush, which we're going to use with alcohol, a small palette knife, a hair pick, and a wood graining tool, and it's two-sided, so one side does wood graining, not well, I can tell you that much, and the other side is like a rubbery comb. I've also got some new brushes that I ordered from Amazon. I know Amazon is the devil, but they have these things that I cannot find anyplace else, so. I've got these brushes with some notches cut out of them, and they're for painting texture and fur and things like that, and they come in different varieties. I also bought a set of these water pens. Now I think they're for watercolor mostly, but I'm always looking for alternative ways to play with paint, so I'm going to fill this up with some liquid acrylic paint and see how that goes. I got a pretty large variety pack because I wanted to play with all the different sizes, so a big fat brush right down to a tiny brush, and they're nice and soft, so we'll see how that goes. Now to start with, I have a 10" by 10" canvas. I haven't primed it or anything, I haven't pre-painted it, just straight out of the package right onto the easel. Off camera, I mixed down my black and white paint with some extender, and without rhyme or reason, just start slapping that on there. So of course I'm going to start with my white because it's easier to mix dark into light. Otherwise you'll be fighting the battle of trying to lighten up the black. And then once you get a little bit of white on there, you can go ahead and start smearing some black into it. And we're not looking for any pattern in particular. We're not looking for any smooth gradients or anything like that. I'm just trying to get some funky color on there. And I have sped up a lot of this video so that you guys don't have to sit through 2 hours of tutorial talking. Now that I've got some paint on my canvas, I'm going to take a coffee filter and crunch it up so it makes funky wrinkle patterns and just start blotting over it. You can do this, you can choose not to do this. You can do whatever you want because this is your background. There are really no rules to this one. So if you choose to use the coffee filter, just ball it up and start smashing it into your wet paint and it'll start making impressions. And the primary focus of this tutorial is not for you to necessarily follow along step by step. It's to get you started and give you some ideas of some cool stuff you can do with paint. So alternatively to smashing the wet paint that's on the canvas is you can pick up some paint right off the palette with your coffee filter and just start dabbing it on there, and that'll leave a different kind of mark. I actually use this technique quite frequently on people's walls. That's a challenge, covering up such a big space with these kind of tools. I'm not going to tell you you have to. I'm just going to suggest that you let this first layer with the black and white dry. We're going to go over it with some transparent colors, and we don't want those to mix with what we've already got down. So let that dry a good bit, and then we'll start adding some color. I went ahead and pre-mixed a medium down, so I've got 50% satin glazing medium and 50% water, and I just mixed it up in a little cup so that I can dip into it easily without having to worry about opening bottles and, you know, getting stuff on my palette for wet blending. So pretty much full strength yellow, because yellow is sort of a weak color, so we can go ahead and full strength yellow right on the canvas. And then as I feel like it needs to be thinned, then I can just dip right into my medium mix and use it as I want. And then my favorite color of all time, phthalo green blue shade. I don't know what is so appealing about this color, but for me, it's like, makes me happy. This color just makes me happy. And you can leave it just like that with all the brush strokes, or you can do like I'm doing and blend those colors together with a blender brush. You want to put these glazes on pretty thin so you can still see what's underneath. And then I'll drop some primary blue on my palette and start mixing that into my masterpiece. And I really have no plan here. I'm just playing with paint, throwing some color up there and seeing what happens. Got some dioxazine purple, which is really, really dark. We're gonna have to thin that out a good bit. This is a color that Soho makes that I also love. It's called Rose Madder, and it is like this vibrant pink full of life, and it goes great with a dioxazine purple. It also makes a spectacular orange, if you must know. I happen to have two blender brushes because I don't want to mix my green blues in with my pinky orange purple, so I'm working with two different blender brushes. Now let's play with some alcohol. So pour a little bit off into a small container. I just use the cap from the alcohol. And I've got my stiff bristle brush, and I'm going to dip it in there and then use my finger to flick it onto the canvas. And you're going to let this alcohol sit for a few seconds before it'll start to work away the paint that you've already laid down. You could also fling it on there. After it's sat for a few, you can use something like a coffee filter or even a rag to remove what the alcohol has lifted up. I got just a little bit of alcohol left on my chippy brush. So I'm brushing that across. The yellow and the splatters that we made with the alcohol are lifting up with the chippy brush. Now we get to the fun stuff. So with your bubble wrap, you just want to put a small amount of paint right on the top of the bubbles. And you can experiment around with this a little bit, but start with just a small amount of paint on top of the bubbles and then press it into your painting and see what happens. If the painting is still slightly wet, it'll lift up some of the color, and if it's a little more dry, it'll lay down some of that color. And don't be afraid of mixing the colors or overlapping anything. Just play with it a little bit and see what you can come up with. We want sort of a funky, makes no sense background. And when it's all said and done, we're not going to really be able to pick up on what we've done. But the eye is going to see that this is odd, right? It's going to look beautiful, but it's going to look odd. And something about it is going to be off, and it's going to be this background that we put on first. So I haven't played with any of these texture brushes yet, so we're going to try some of that out and see how that goes. Need a lighter stroke with these for sure. I'm not really sure I love that, but you know what? It doesn't matter, because it's an abstract background. I can do whatever I want. Now we'll let that first layer dry for a little bit, and I actually want mine to be a little bit stronger, a little bit brighter, so I'm going to go over my layers again. You can leave yours where it's at, or put another layer on, or whatever you feel like doing. And I actually want to shift my colors around a little bit from where I put them on the first time, so there's a little bit more weird going on. The second layer is a good time to use tools that are going to scratch the paint off. Pick up my scratch tool and try making some marks with that. So play with a comb or even an old hairbrush, or if you have a tool specifically for painting, use that. Make random funky marks. See what you like. Just out of curiosity, I want to see what this pearl pigment powder is going to do. I'm going to flick some of that into my wet paint and see what happens. I think it would probably work better if I mixed it down with a medium and then added it over top like a glaze. I forgot to use my wood graining tool, so I'm going to slap some paint on there, run that through a few times, see if I like it. Nah, I don't like it. The wood graining tool works pretty well, but you have to be using it on a flat, hard surface. So maybe I'll try it again for another piece that's a wood panel. And that pigment powder kind of dulled everything out a little bit. Here's something else you can do with the alcohol. Get a coffee filter, damp with alcohol, and then you wrinkle it up, place it on the canvas, and then turn it a little bit, and then you'll get another crazy pattern. Same as we did with the black and white underpainting. I've got a balled up coffee filter, dip it in some color, and pat it on the painting. This also leaves a cool textured background. So you see where we're going with all this, right? We're just trying to put down a crazy background with colors that make your heart happy. And then we're going to put something over top of it that makes it look like a pretty painting. Real quick, I want to show you what I did to mix down these colors. Now, I know I generally use student grade paints in the beginner's tutorials, but I'm going to use the golden because it's already in a fluid form and I don't have to mix it down so much. So I've got golden carbon black liquid paint, and this is very highly pigmented, so you only need a little bit. I'll probably have 2/3 medium, 1/3 paint. Mix that up real well, and then we're gonna use an eyedropper to get it into our paint pen. Real quick, let me remind you that the reference photo and the printable line art are available at the link below so that you can follow along with what we're doing here. I chose the rose because the petals are wide open and there's a lot of space for our background to show through, but you really could use any flower you want. You'll just have to find the reference photo and do the line art yourself. I've not ever really used these pens for a painting, just sort of played around the ones my daughter has for her watercolor. I think it's going to take some getting used to because the handle is really wide, so I'm having to make a little bit of adjustments, and the paint doesn't flow as freely as I had hoped, so for the future I'll probably have to thin it down a little bit more. So we got our line art on there, and what I'm going to do with it is just trace over the line art that's there and do sort of a pop art or comic book style, tattoo style black lines. And I'm going to skip through a lot of this, just show you some highlights because it's really just tracing lines on a canvas, and that doesn't take any special skill or knowledge. I have every bit of confidence that you can do this. Plus, my big fat head is in the way. Magic of television, all done. Now I am going to use my reference photo to kind of map out where the darkest areas of the background are. I want that bottom right hand corner to be mostly black. And I ditched the paint water brush thing for the time being because I found it a little bit clunky, and I really just wanted to go with what I knew, what I was comfortable with, so I switched to a round brush. And I just dip that in the mix that I made to fill the paint pen with. For the remainder of the background, I've chosen 2 different shades of green. So I've got my phthalo green blue shade, and then I've got a lighter hooker's green, and I'm just going to mix those 2 up right on the canvas without rhyme or reason. You could use orange, you could use purple, you could do whatever you want to this background. And I'm not trying to get it smooth, I'm just plopping some color on there and using the wide part of the brush to leave brush strokes, as I want all that funky texture in there. And jumping back and forth between the 2 different colors to give me some interest and something fun underneath. And this doesn't have to be real strong either. If you can see the background through it, great. If you don't want to see the background anymore, that's fine too. Just do whatever makes you happy. I really love these free projects where I can just do whatever I want. There's no rules, no rhyme or reason, just playing with paint. And then I'll add a little more black at the very end to blend that in with the green. Pretty simple. After I let that dry for a little bit, I'm going to move on to adding some depth, shadow, and shading. I'm going to use my reference photo to tell me where all this stuff goes, and I'm going to use a very thin glazy black to build up those dark areas and define the shapes of the petals. I've just got a small makeup blender that I'm using to push and pull paint and blend out the edges. So I'm going to run this at regular speed for a little while, and then we're going to speed it up so you kind of get the idea of what I'm doing, and then you can see the process in high speed. got a large area, you want to lay down a pretty thick band of the black glaze, then use your blender brush to pull it all down. I want to use these texture brushes that I got to see if they'll be any good at making the veins and wrinkles on the rose petals. I think they did a pretty good job, although the bristles don't hold very much paint, so you only get a swipe or two out of them before you have to reload your brush, but it does a good job of laying down multiple lines at a time. I've let that first layer of black glaze dry, and I'm going to come over top of that with another layer. When you're doing it this way, when you're adding the black slowly in layers, it makes it so that you can still see what's underneath a little bit. If we were just to come over top of this with the straight darker black and not build it up in layers, then we would just be covering up all the work we did on the background. we're coming into the home stretch. The last thing I'm going to do is re-outline the petals because I really want them to stand out tattoo art style or old school tattoo style. So just real quick, go back in, redefine all those lines, maybe add a little bit of punch or interest to them, make them a little more stylized, and then we'll call this one done. So what do you guys think? Do we like this style of painting? You want to see more of this? You want some more tutorials on ways you could use this abstract style? Let me know in the comment section and I will do the best I can to accommodate. I really enjoyed this one, and it's actually my daughter's favorite that I've done so far for this series, so I'd be happy to do some more. And done. Now next week I won't be posting a new tutorial because I actually have a paying mural gig, but I will film that and post it up here for you guys to see next Friday. So until then, go forth, make beautiful things.